Chromosomes. Little strands of nucleic acids and proteins are the fundamental genetic instructions that tell us who we are at birth. Most people are born with 46 chromosomes, but each year in the United States, about 6,000 people are born with an extra chromosome, making them a person with Down syndrome. If you've ever encountered someone with Down syndrome, you know that they are some of the kindest, most joyful people you will ever meet. They truly have something extra. My name is Lisa Nichols, and I have spent the last 24 years as both the CEO of Technology Partners and as the mother to Allie. Allie has something extra in every sense of the word. I have been blessed to be by her side as she impacts everyone she meets. Through these two important roles as CEO and mother to Allie, I have witnessed countless life lessons that have fundamentally changed the way I look at the world. While you may not have an extra chromosome, every leader has something extra that defines who you are. Join me as I explore the something extra in leaders from all walks of life and discover how that difference in each of them has made a difference in their companies, their families, their communities, and in themselves. If you like this episode today, please go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and leave us a 5-star rating. I'm excited to have Phil Howard on the show today. Phil is the founder and host of Dissecting Popular IT Nerds. Well, Phil, I'm so delighted that you agreed to join the Something Extra podcast today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's not hard to get me to talk. I mean, I have to do this every day, all day, every day. So appreciate
you do this for a living. So
kind of, it's like a hobby that somehow pays, you know what I mean? No one should have a job. Everyone, no one wants to have a job. They should have a career. They should have something that they love doing every day.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
I love it. And I love that you have married that passion with, being able to make money at it. But, I always love to go back and tell our listeners, Phil, how we were connected. So we were connected by a mutual, he's a very dear friend of mine, Dan Roberts, that reached out and said, Lisa, you should have Phil on your show. And so, when Dan asks me or tells me I should do something, I do it. But yeah, I'm really excited. And I got more and more excited, Phil, as I was preparing for this. And I told you offline, you're a big deal.
Kind of a big deal. Like I said, my kids would agree with that. No, I appreciate it. No, I thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
But,
I love that.
Not really, but I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's the people that we support that are the big deal.
Amen to that too. Yes, I completely agree with you. Well, you've got a passion for helping bridge the gap between the language of business and technology. You just mentioned it, but you're married with 8 kids. Never a dull moment in your house, I bet, Phil.
No, it's 4 boys, 4 girls. So there's emotional moments throughout the day, and then there's just things getting broken and windows getting broken throughout the day. So yes, you could probably, if we're realists, you could probably guess where the emotional moments can come from at times and who's breaking windows.
Yes, I do, because I've got both boys and girls. So I can pinpoint where each of those things are happening. But yeah, so are you an Uber driver, in your spare time? That's what I'm thinking.
No. Oh, I mean, yeah, I guess so. We have a 15 passenger van. I guess, an Odyssey doesn't fit the family anymore. I have 2 grandchildren now too, as well. So it's kind of insane. They were all over at the house last night. So that was fun. I was like, it's really like I have 10 kids now because, but then there's my son-in-law. So that's like an 11th child. So yes, yes, I'm kind of an Uber driver. I hate driving though. I let my wife drive everywhere. She's the driver. She loves it.
Oh, okay.
It was one of the reasons why I married her. She was a very aggressive driver from Nebraska, and I'm from Massachusetts, and there's a lot of stereotypes about Massachusetts drivers. Some inappropriate words that they call people as well. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just thinking family dinners are really fun at your house. I am sure.
Yeah. 100 wings last night, 100 wings from Buffalo Wild Wings, plus a bunch of extra stuff that we had to order also.
Wow, 100 wings. That is nuts. Well, I know that too, reading about you, you're very interested in helping raise funds for nonprofit. You're very great about supporting the underserved. So I was thinking about this, Phil, and you and I, we're in lockstep with each other. on so many different things, technology space, love to communicate, serving the underserved. We do the same thing, but I stopped at 3 children. So there's the difference between the big
Look,
difference
honestly, I was the
between.
guy that was never going to have kids. I was the guy that's like, I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to have kids. I was kind of a hippie in college. I was like, I'm not, the whole rat race, like, salespeople are like scumbags and, I'm just going to like live on an island and surf for the rest of my life. And then
Mm-hmm.
my brother-in-law, who is an anesthesiologist. Everyone in my family is like a doctor or comes from the medical field of some sort. And then there was just me, like just, if you're not really passionate about being a doctor, you can't go through medical school and do all that.
Right.
So he looked at me when I said that and he's like, oh, so you're going to amount to nothing. I was like, oh, that's a good point. Maybe that's not a good plan. And, sometimes there's things that people say to you throughout your life that stick. That was one of those things.
Isn't that the truth? Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. One statement like that, right? And
Just
then
a
you're like,
couple well-placed words at the right time
yes.
can make a huge difference in someone's life.
Yes, that's true. I mean, for the positive or the negative, right? I mean, it could go either way. I'm glad in this case it was the positive for you.
It was a negative positive. It was one of those.
That's so funny.
It was who said negative reinforcement doesn't work? Quit being a loser. So you're going to be a loser. No, actually, no, I don't want to do that.
No,
So,
I don't want to be a loser. That is so funny. I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. Well, tell me, so you said you grew up in Massachusetts, and I know this about you, that you did grow up with a family of doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you went to college for pre-med, right?
Did.
But then decided, that's not
What kind
really
of
for
AI
me.
research do you have? How do you know all of this about me? This is a little creepy. Maybe you should go into like, those fake, like, read your
Forensic or
minds. Like, no, where you call like 1-800 and they know everything about you. I could tell that you grew up with doctors. And I did. I was pre-med because if you anyone that's grown up in like a really high powered kind of doctor medical household, you might know. I don't want to stereotype every doctor out there, but you might know that the doctors are the smartest men in the room. And there's a hierarchy in the hospital. There's a pecking order in the hospital. I think it's probably the least HR compliant atmosphere in the world. Although you would think, because you see people naked all day and it's insane. And you've got doctors, this whole pecking order and stereotypes being thrown around. So it's kind of like you're expected to, and when you come from a family of doctors, you're kind of expected to be a doctor. Even my father's still pressuring my son. So you're going to go to medical school. So you're going to do this. What are you going to do when you grow up? So there's a lot of pressure for that. So yeah, I was pre-med just because that's what you do. And it might be something that's formed a lot of my philosophy in life, which is do the opposite of what everyone tells you to do. And that's probably has a lot of truth to it. But I was pre-med and realized that the amount of work and passion that you have to become a doctor is such a high level that if you don't have it, you just can't do it. So yeah, I dropped out of that real quick and found out that it wasn't for me. I didn't, there was no passion there. There was no passion for
right.
it. Not that
Well,
I don't have a ton of
years
respect.
and years.
Yeah,
Yes, tons of respect. I'm grateful for them, right? I'm grateful
for
that
my
they
father
voted
and my
for
brother-in-law
20
who's
years.
my brother-in-law who's the anesthesiologist, right? He's like a big supporter of Doctors Without Borders and stuff. And I have a ton of respect for my father and the work that he put in and the work ethic that he instilled in me, growing up. But no, it just wasn't me.
Yeah. That's a great, I love your philosophy there. Well, what did you like to do as a child? I mean, were you a sports junkie?
No, I was, no, not at all. I was and I believe one of the things that a good leader is a good coach, right? Is a good coach. And I coach my guys all the time saying like, look, I was the guy that walked with his head down in high school that was scared of his own shadow. I was the guy that I grew up in the country kind of in like I'm like a small town farm guy, like Princeton, Massachusetts. Guys, look it up on the map. Like, I think that the town population is like, 1,400 households. So I wasn't into sports. I wasn't very competitive though. I'm a very competitive person, but I wasn't into sports. I was kind of like this weak little scared kid. And it wasn't until, maybe you call me a late bloomer or something. It wasn't until late in life that I really got very competitive and kind of learned to confront fears and insecurities and that type of stuff that maybe I am where I'm at now. And I think that's one of the keys to, for a lot of people to be successful, is do what you're afraid to do.
Ah, I love that
Yeah.
because fear is the thing. I was thinking about this. I was having a philosophical conversation with myself this morning, Phil, and just the research will tell you for women, especially confidence, it's a lack of confidence that often holds them back.
Mm-hmm.
That lack of confidence, though, it really comes from a place of fear. And I was thinking about that, and how do you move past that? And I love what you just said. So some of the
Susan,
things
just
that
so you know,
you,
Susan Jeffers, I believe it's Susan Jeffers. She wrote the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways. Had a huge impact on my life. I think she went through a divorce. I can't remember the whole story. I read the book a long time ago, but just the title of her book alone, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways, that kind of getting out of your comfort zone and, just building on top of everything every day. It's just, the more you push yourself and get out of your comfort zone, the more you're going to grow. And I think that applies to really anybody.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I know that you went on now. I know you went on to pursue English and, history and creative writing and that in college. But did you enjoy that? Did you enjoy, like, as a kid, Phil, did you read? Were you a lit guy
No,
at
no,
all?
it's
Did you
terrible.
read?
Hated school,
Uh-huh.
got average grades. I did read. It would have to be a book that I really wanted to read. It's kind of a science fiction nerd. I would read that stuff. Uh, Thinking back now, I did the work because I always did enough work to not be a C student, to be at least a B minus student, because I felt
Mm-hmm.
like if you got C's, you're, it's just like the boundaries that society kind of holds you to. Back then it was about like, what would people think of me if I didn't have good grades, or at least, so I did
Mm-hmm.
I think I did enough to be good. That doesn't now, thinking back on it, I don't think that has any judge of someone's actual level of intelligence and ability.
Oh, I
But thinking
completely
back,
agree with
I
that.
mean, I took a lot out of it, like, English literature, minor in, um, I guess, concentration in history. The history I liked more. Probably should have majored in history if I was to go back. But even thinking about it now, modern day education, I probably could have educated. There was a lot of education that I probably didn't need to go to college for. But
Mm-hmm.
whatever is hindsight or whatever, we are a product of how we reacted to and made choices in any given situation.
Yeah. That's That's good. Well, so, why did you choose though English? What was the impetus for that? I mean, why did you just say, I think I could
I
do
think I
this?
liked reading, Milton and Chaucer and Shakespeare, and it was just like the opposite of biology and chemistry. I
Mhm.
don't know
Yeah.
why. I was immature back then. I who knows? I probably was not always in my right mindset, and kind of more like of the earth, and reading in English and creative writing, and liked writing poetry and expressing myself. And I majored in creative writing, and in this concentration was poetry.
Mhm. Yeah. So do you still write today? A
I
poet? I
write
mean, poems, I know
I
you
mean,
write
I've got a
blogs.
book coming out. I've got
Oh,
I
good.
love writing I love writing headlines and marketing material, just because it's a lot of fun, playing with words. And I love writing articles based on, technology. And, but yeah, as far as, nonfiction stuff, nah, not like a real, nothing, nothing crazy there. I like writing emails,
Mhm.
like funny emails. I like writing emails with crazy subject lines and seeing how many
With
people read them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
creativity. No, that's good. I mean, and the reality is, Phil, I don't care what profession you choose. the things that you majored in carry forward with every profession.
Oh yeah,
To be able to
yourself
communicate,
and
communication is key, right?
yeah, being able to express yourself and write in the business world and write technical papers and all of that is very important. I mean, I took
Mhm.
some small business management classes as well. So I was all over the place in college, and it had nothing to do with any sort of vision or direction whatsoever.
Mhm. Yeah, but it's played out okay for you
It did, yeah.
because you
I mean, because
ended up.
eventually, I think what happened was I decided that we are actually here for a purpose on the face of this earth, and once you get clear with what your values are and what you want to accomplish in life, then you actually get really excited and start living life on purpose.
I love that. This is funny. It was like you were in my mind this morning because I told you I had this whole philosophical conversation with myself this morning. And,
Mhm.
I wasn't going to talk to you about this, but now that you brought it up, I'm going to talk to you about it. So, purpose. I just think purpose is so critical for people to understand what their purpose is. And, this podcast is something extra. And I happen to believe, and I'm sure you believe it too, we've all been gifted with something extra. We've all been gifted with these gifts. But how do you have to kind of start with your purpose first to know how your gifts fit into living out your purpose. And I was having this whole philosophical conversation with myself this morning, but do you mind telling me what is your purpose? I mean, you kind of zeroed in on that for yourself, and what does that look like for you?
Well, I happen to be a very spiritual person. I do believe in an almighty Lord, creator, sustainer, and owner of the universe. And I do believe that humankind was created for a reason. And I don't believe that mankind was just like poof showed up out of came from nothing. I'm the not an atheist by any means. I don't believe that we just appeared out of nowhere spontaneously. I don't believe that something comes from nothing. I just don't. I don't. If you were
Mhm.
walking in the desert and you came across some sort of animal dung, right? You would know that it came from somewhere, right? You don't just if you're driving down the highway in I don't know what's the one of the more desolate places of middle America. You're driving down and it's just in
The
the middle of
desert.
nowhere, and a huge mall shows up, and there's a huge mall there. You would know that there's a creator, right? So, from a
Mhm.
very simplistic standpoint, I do believe there's a creator, sustainer, and owner of the universe, and we are created for a reason. That's to worship Him, and
Mhm.
worship comes in um, many forms of like prayer, doing good deeds, giving back to the all of this stuff. So um, that is the reason that's the reason that drives me is to worship my Lord above and to be the best that I can and to so from that standpoint, that's my purpose. Now, what God given talents did have I been endowed with to use to serve that purpose? Well, I'm different from everybody else, and that's something special, or that you were talking
Mhm.
about, right?
Unique.
You
Mhm.
is different to every person. So I would say, number one, what's that unique thing would be, I guess my God given genetics to begin with, right? But then to take those talents that I've been given to serve people, one of them would be to help other people use their talents to, um, to serve as well.
Mhm. Yeah. So I did not know that about you, but we're lockstep on that too.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, I believe the same thing. And to your point, we're not here for nothing. There is a purpose, and I think people trying to find their purpose is really important.
It's
But
difficult to nowadays when you grow up in a country where you pretty much have everything. There's not,
mhm.
you know what I mean? So it's hard for somebody. I think that the majority of humans are kind of led by desires. And when you're led by desires and that becomes your purpose, it can be a very shallow existence, but it can be very easy to do in a country where you've got running water and you've got just about everything. Even the poor people in America, most of them would be like considered almost like middle class or living like kings if you were in another
Sure.
third world country. And I'm not saying that there's not poor people. I'm not saying that there's not, we've got a lot of, problems. But yeah, I actually don't know. Kind of lost my train of thought there. I don't know where I was going with that, but I know having a purpose, right? So I think that can get lost when you have access to everything almost pretty easily. That's really not our
Mm-hmm.
purpose. I find sometimes giving, um, giving and being okay. No, being okay with being poor. You know what I mean? Like being okay with
Mm-hmm.
being poor, but not poor of like, mind and values and that type of thing. I think you'll find that
Right.
you then are really rich, but not saying
Yeah.
that I'm not saying that money is not important. It's right up there with oxygen. You know what I mean? But,
Yeah, let's just get clear. Well, and we've always said, Phil, from day one, when we founded Technology Partners, our goal was to say, if we can do really well as a company, we can do a lot of good in the world. And
exactly. Yes.
a lot of good comes from resources, right? Being
Ye-
able to help,
yes.
alleviate sex trafficking or feeding the poor or, whatever the case may be. You need resources for all of those things.
Sex trafficking is big. Is big. Most people don't understand that. They don't understand that that's kind of being. I feel it's being repressed a lot by the mainstream media. But it's,
Mhm.
again, I'm not a revolutionist. No one go there. But Malcolm X said the revolution will never be televised. So a lot of the truths you're not going to find just watching TV. Kill the TV. I killed the TV years ago. Threw it out of the house. Threw it in the trash. So.
Good for you. So you have no television in your house.
Zero. Homeschool my kids. I did the opposite of everything. So you're going to homeschool your kids. They're not going to be
They're
they're
not
not
going to
going
be
to be able to
socially.
socialize. Like, no, my kids actually can hold a real conversation with an adult
Yes.
without saying some weird things that they learned from a bunch of other kids at school. All in their
12-year-olds.
Yeah, I mean, we have to have some control over our kids and teach them how to have communicate and talk with people and not be glued to a device all the time. So.
Mm-hmm. I'm understanding a lot more about you now. And I bet your kids are all amazing, mature beyond their years,
Yeah, they're all
I
different.
mean,
They're all crazy. They all have different things. We're like, how is that?
mhm.
They're all very different. So,
Yeah.
it's sometimes your children are your test. You know what I mean? This life is like a field of play and it's a test. I do believe I don't believe that all these bad things that happen in the world, it's how we deal with them and how we're patient with them and how we, kind of tackle these different things are for a reason. It's all for a test. So
Mhm.
I'm okay with there being evil in the world. It's for a reason.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, this has been so much fun. I wasn't planning on going there with
Yeah,
you,
most
but I'm
people don't
glad
go
we
there either.
did.
Yeah, I don't do this a lot
So,
on my podcast, and I don't tell. On a technology podcast, I don't tell the technology people, "Hey, I got rid of my TV," and I don't give my kids devices. Get rid of the technology.
right.
Go off the grid.
Yeah, that's not what you want to be promoting. But
No.
oh gosh, Phil, I've got so much more because I want to dive into your career. I want to dive into your podcast, all of that. But we do need to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Phil Howard on the Something Extra podcast.
In business, the tendency is to seek out partners who are bigger, faster, stronger. When it comes to IT, you should be looking for smarter, faster, better. That's just what you'll find with the talented technologists at Technology Partners. Our experts develop custom solutions to tackle your most complex challenges, all to simplify your processes in the smartest, most efficient way possible. The time to be swift and nimble starts now. Go to technologypartners.net/solutions and see what's possible.
Welcome back to the Something Extra podcast, everyone, with Phil Howard. We've been having an amazing conversation here, but I do want to get into what Phil's doing today. So, Phil, let's talk about your career a little bit. And I know that you started your career in sales. I think it was See Beyond was the name of the company.
Oh, See
I think it was,
Beyond. Yes.
yeah, See
Anyone that knows
Beyond.
See Beyond knows See Beyond. And you either have fond memories of it or you do not have fond memories of See Beyond because we were like boiler room, I guess. They used to have a website called jobvent.com. It became Glassdoor. Glassdoor bought them. And it was just like employees went on, invented, right? And anyone that has ever been in sales, if you've ever been to like an entry level, like hardcore business to business sales job, then 90% of the people quit. 90%. It takes a significant, it's a lot of failure, a lot of rejection. And that was See Beyond. And some of the things that people said on Job Event, we used to look at, we used to just die laughing, rolling on the floor, because people would be like, boiler room in full effect, Nazi boot camp. We're like, it was just terrible, and here I am. It changed my life forever. So I started,
Right.
See Beyond was a Cisco startup. So Cisco, it was back when VoIP was just coming out. Cisco used to we were selling T1s basically with a Cisco IAD, internet access device on the end, and giving access to the See Beyond cloud, right? Which was like, hey, we would go in and we'd say, hey, would you like to be able to access your computer files from home? Like, this was back when no one knew what a VPN was. Like, you could remote in. How about, how do you back up your files? I think we were giving out like $250K of backup. And if you wanted an extra $250K, it was like $500 a month. It was absurd. So just to give you an idea of how far technology has come, that was like DSL had just come out back then. So yes, that was where I started out. But for me, I was leaving Starbucks. I mean, Starbucks is where I worked when I got out of college, and the only thing, the reason why I think sales has such a high turnover is people are like, oh, I can just go get a job somewhere else. But me, I was coming from retail, right? So I think there's not many jobs that are harder or more of a grind than like retail restaurant work.
Oh, quick start. I could not agree more. I mean, sometimes I feel so sorry. I feel so sorry. The other day I was in Panera and I think there were 2 people in there and they're like rushing around like carrying mice, trying to serve people.
They gave me an MBA. They gave me the equivalent of an MBA because I managed like a $1.2 million store at Starbucks before I went to See Beyond or the Cisco startup. So I knew how to manage a P&L. I knew what gross margin, flow through profit. I got all of my business management skills there, learned how to interview people, learned how to be everyone's local psychologist because you talk to everyone that comes in and buys coffee, right? Which is just about everybody. So who just got out of jail, who, had a relationship on the side, all the elderly people that came in every day and sat there and like had, a group of people, whatever it was. It's your community, it was a community store. So, so then when I went to, but it was, people quitting. It was the alarm going off at 4:30 in the morning. It was at the time, I think the highest I ever made there after all raises and promotions and everything and making, a $1.2 million store. I think that the salary, the max I ever got to was maybe $41,000 a year, right? $39,000 a year. So you just can't, here I am with a new house, 2 kids at the time, I put my resume up on monster.com after we were very successful, selling a bunch of espresso machines. And I got this Cisco startup. So I went in and it was $21,000 a year salary. And then everything else was commission. And I looked around the room and I was like, well, and after everyone was all negative and you had all kinds of people quitting and all this stuff, I was like, well, I have to make this work. I have to put food on the table. So I learned to battle a ton of negative emotions inside the workplace. I learned to, just go out and talk with everyone. And, the one thing that I always tell people nowadays, I've got like 3 things when I became a sales coach eventually, was like, tell people 3 things. Like, first of all, if you want to make your sales career a lot easier, number 1, get them smiling. Famous Zig Ziglar quote, right? Get them smiling. Number 5, ask 5 damn good questions, like really good questions. And then number 3, like, close for the appointment, just to sit down and talk. In worst case scenario, let's do business in the community. Let's collaborate. I'll send business your way in the future, but close for that appointment. And so that was it was a big, I think that was a big, leap for me, just dealing with, learning to sell can be a very, very difficult job. And then, so I learned technology at the same time, but I had the business experience that a lot of people didn't have. Like, I knew what a P&L was. I knew that when I was going in to meet with, technology leaders or business owners or whatever, I knew what they were trying to do, which was become a profitable business. And I knew how to employ technology now, because now I was given the technology tools. I'm like, well, why don't you do this to do this? So I knew about return on investment, and I knew how to manage cost of goods, and I knew controllable costs versus operating costs, which all the noobs that were just out of college that took this sales job had no clue about. So I think that's a key piece, is understanding what other people are trying to accomplish and do with technology,
Right. Yeah, and you just said it right there. Therein lies the key to sales, I think, is really understanding the pain of the customer, right? And delivering a solution in a way that's pleasing and not brash or, off-putting or whatnot, because salespeople can be,
it's so
you don't want to be a
ingrained in
pest,
our
but
DNA now, like, I don't even think about that anymore. And I'm sure you don't either, right? It's so ingrained in our DNA to just, it's how we help you fill a need. They used to call me Fill the Need. I mean, there's all kinds of there's all kinds of fills out there. They fill the need. But the reason why salespeople are kind of have a bad rap or are so hated, because there's this stereotypical person that the salesperson is a selfish person just trying to sell to fill a quota and get paid. And that's the truth. It's the 80-20 rule, right? It's just like the stereotypes of the IT guy that's like impersonal and kind of an engineering mindset and can't talk with people and get the heck out of my way. Don't you know how to use a mouse? And what do you mean you don't know what SQL is and database? And, like, that's the other, stereotype as well, right? So I don't know what the lesson is there. Care about people, make it about them first.
make it about serving them.
Yeah, I mean, my famous quote is, it's all about them. It's all about them. It's all about them. It's all about them.
Well, wasn't it Zig that said, you brought up Zig, but he said, to get what you want, help enough other people get what they want.
If you can just help enough other people get what they want, you in turn will get what you want. Yes, absolutely. And before I ever spoke to anyone,
right there,
if you want to, and it's part of, like, I kind of enjoy public speaking, which is crazy, because I love putting people on the spot. It's all about them. You know what I mean? As long as you go in with any mindset anywhere, it will relieve, because I used to be like, how do I get rid of these, like, nerves? How do you get rid of this? And you just make it all about them. Take yourself out of the equation. It's, and then you're serving. When you're serving, right? And it doesn't matter. If I can help you, great. If not, no big deal.
Yeah. That's good. That's good advice, Phil. I love that. That's quotable right there. Well, I'm just going to read a few of these things. I kind of looked at what people said about you. You had a passion, you had a great ability to listen, positive outlook, always led by example, raised the bar. You were a visionary thinker. You're also a roll up the sleeves kind of guy, which I love. You're not like, you're
where are you getting this stuff from again? How are you? I need your tool. Anyway,
do my research.
Okay.
But I love this. I love what this says. Phil showed that creativity, work ethic, dedication, and responsiveness are a winning formula for success and top performance. And you were always in the 1%. So I mean, that right there is a great formula. So hard work ethic, you learned that from your father, you learned that from your family.
It's called hyperactive. Let's be real. It's hyperactive. Impatient, hyperactive person that needs results now.
Whatever works, right? Dedication and responsiveness. And as a salesperson, truly the responsiveness piece is very important too. I would say that,
Yes, that's the biggest complaint, right? If I when I survey all the people, all the IT leaders that we interview, and I'm sure you can pinpoint it as well. You don't want to know, is there something unique about my leadership, right? But you're going to find that everything falls into probably 3 to 5 themes. All the challenges. They're all going to be some version of something, right? So like for IT leaders, for example, it's training end users. Like that's whatever version that comes in, it's dealing with so-and-so up front. It's the other people's adoption of technology, whatever that is, it's training end users. Sorry, customers. We need to call them customers or people, souls, right? Souls that use endpoints, right? So that's one. The other one is, decision direction, taking decision direction in this crazy world where everything's completely volatile and changing every second. And, AI is going to be the end of the world and all this stuff. So decision direction as an IT manager, influencing executive management, right? Whatever form that comes in, right? IT's pigeonholed. They don't respect, they need to understand that nothing gets done without technology, blah, 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 right? There's that thing. Then there is, to get to your point that you just made, dealing with poor vendor support. Mediocrity is the name of the game in the vendor world, period. It's literally, people literally say, we're better. One of my best bosses I ever worked for, and I trusted her 100%. And Donna Wank, put her in here, like one of the best bosses ever. When I interviewed with her and I knew I wanted to work with her, is when I asked her a question, she gave me an honest answer. And I said, why should I come to work here? And she said, Phil, because we suck less. I was like, what? This is back in the corporate world. And I was like, this is probably why I'm not a corporate guy anymore. But, I was like, okay, can run with that. But it's responsiveness, I would say, is one of the number one things that just has made me successful. Respond in hours, not days.
Yeah, that's so good.
Some people say, check your email only twice a day. There's probably some truth to that. Not me. I'm insane. I'll respond to an email at 2:00 in the morning.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what I think it is? Phil, I think what it shows is that you are as concerned about their success as they are concerned about their success.
I freak out when my customers are unhappy or having a bad day or something went wrong or, whatever. There's an internet circuit down or there's an install going sideways and a project manager is unreachable because, again, all these vendors are mediocre and they put all their money into sales and they put very little money into project management and customer service. Let's just be honest. That's the truth. So but it's changing and it's changing because of I would like to say people like us, which are driving the kind of newer way of technology adoption, because technology is not old. It's not old. It's 100 years old.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. You can go in for that quick sale and not have the delivery mechanism, the processes on the back end, but that's not a sustainable model.
You're
not going to keep those customers.
Anyone can make a sale. Only a few people can build a career.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, hey, I want to move into this now. You have an award-winning IT podcast called Dissecting Popular IT Nerds. I love this. You launched it, I think, February 2017. You're already in the top 1% of podcasts out there. There's 3 million podcasts out there. You're in the top 1%. So congratulations.
Thank you. It just happened. I mean, we're just decided to start talking like this, and I guess people liked it. I'm still shocked when people call me up and they're like, I listen to your show regularly. I'm like, that's so cool. I can't Yeah. But it's probably like how Joe Rogan started out too. It was just a bunch of his like buddies sitting together and like talking about crazy stuff,
Yeah. And you just hope that, I mean, I know you're just giving some good stuff away too, Phil, and you're helping people on their own journey. But I love what you say here. You go, no one is going to automatically save you a seat at the executive roundtable. You get there by taking ownership. Ownership is I love that word, ownership. Understanding your company's vision, offering a clearly defined roadmap for digital transformation. And so this is what you're really helping as you are having different people on your podcast, you're helping people own their growth. And I love that. I love that. So,
well, it's also a peer-to-peer. The thing is, as well, which is very important, is that no one becomes successful by themselves. I think if there was like a couple things that I could tell people, like one would be delegate, don't do everything. And I try to tell my wife that too, while she's like homeschooling 8 kids and doing laundry and like, and they're like, stop, you should never do a dish again, ever. You should never do a dish again. You got to delegate, and then you got to put people in the, I can't remember the book, but put people in the right seats on the bus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not like I did this alone. This is a peer-to-peer podcast. I'm just interviewing other people that have done it and saying, thank you. And let's share that with the world. And now let's consolidate that down into, how can we kind of put this all together and help everyone else work together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would say if you're a technology leader out there, even if you're not, because the principles apply so many times across the board. So go subscribe to Phil's podcast and listen. But you also have a back-end program. So tell me how, and you launched that, I think, in July of 2017. How does all of that work together? Tell our listeners about that.
Yeah. So here's the thing. The people that are on our IT leadership show fall within a certain kind of space. They're like the heroes of the IT world, right? Which in America, and the heart and soul of America is like manufacturing, logistics. It's, all of these kind of like American mid-market enterprises that usually have anywhere from, 200 employees upwards of maybe 10,000 employees, just under enterprise, but not small business, right? Those have IT leaders that have to do so much. It's just ridiculous what falls on their shoulders. And the average ratio, and I've done the math on this, of IT staff to end user, and again, souls, customers, the average ratio is 1 to 100. So that means there's 100 people working in that company to every one IT staff. And yet every single one of those people use technology and rely on that technology leader to make sure things are secure, to make sure that we've got the most optimized group of applications, to make sure that there's no shadow IT going on. The ERP nightmares, the SAP transitions, which, I've had people say, you either have a job or you don't have a job by the time you're done with that one. That's just, you know what I mean? Like
it's a make or break.
You know what I mean? So all of this falls on their shoulders as a day job. So how do they stay ahead of the game? And so we developed, the whole point of the podcast with sponsors and vendors and everything that puts it in is to provide a back end program of upwards of well over 800 employees and a back end support office to help IT directors that will never cost them a dime. So we help do a certain level. We consult in certain areas. There's certain areas I will steer clear from. ERP. You can have all of that. You guys can have all of that.
We'll take it.
Right. But we want to help you manage the mediocrity of all those vendors. We want to help you, give you enterprise level support. We want to take the data of thousands and thousands of deals that have been negotiated and tell you what the real pricing is, because numbers don't lie. People lie. Right. And we want to get out of this kind of direct sales attack mode where you feel like I've got to meet with all these direct sales people, do some research, use Gartner Magic Quadrant, which is really only a snapshot in time, right? Which we all know is a pay to play model, right? It's not real time data. And there's a lot of other factors that you're not taking into consideration on Gartner. And there's a lot of players on there that might not be on there. So there's all of this. We want to take all of that and help you do that and do all of that work for you for free and help you take decision direction without you having to spend a lot of time researching when you've got your day job anyways. Because we find that IT directors will end up making a decision quickly with, vendors that is going to affect them for the next 3 to 5 years. And they make those quick decisions sometimes because the budget's coming up, contracts are coming up, and we're going to do as much research as I can as fast as possible. And we're going to listen to these direct sales reps that come in and pitch to us, which I hate that word. like we're doing something to them, so we have a back end program that will help you manage a lot of and give you kind of decision direction and give you data and insight into really all of your vendors. And then, we advise you decide. That's it. And it's all paid for. It's never going to cost you a dime. And you're still going to go contract directly with any of your vendors anyways, but we're going to give you insight into that. And we specialize in, if we're very direct with this, we specialize in network, software defined networking. If you've got manufacturing in China, we can show you how to really get around the Chinese firewall and, some of the best options and how to, reduce latency and stuff, migrating off of old phone systems, PBXs, so to speak, or migrating between different cloud providers. During COVID, we saw, a huge huge migration to Teams. A lot of people went with Zoom just because they could. It was, again, you had a lot of people just make knee-jerk reactions during COVID quickly, and they might even be overpaying right now. Cloud migrations, AWS strategy, AWS cost containment, mobile device management stuff, security, obviously huge, even energy. So that's where we're helping. And how we do it is we have a very large economy of scale and combined customer buying power. So, well over 1.2 billion in combined customer buying power. So that's, we like to say, let's, put us on your team. You don't have to put us on your payroll. Right. So,
I like that
from that standpoint. Yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I hope people, will reach out to you about that. And I love what you said. You said, we advise, you decide.
Yeah. And
so you're neutral. I mean, it's not like you're getting, any kind of kickbacks or anything like that from any of this. It's more, putting the information in front of the client, and then they actually decide, who they partner with.
Yes, thank you. And again, the all of these different sayings and stuff, if I had to quote and tell you where everyone came from, I mean, a lot of these sayings we gather up over time. So
sure.
I can't remember the first time I heard, we advise, you decide, but I've definitely heard it from someone over time. So whoever out there is listening that you hear that, you get credit and pipe up and we'll give you credit. You know what I mean? But there's like a lot of these things. I can't remember who said the oxygen thing either. Money's not everything, but it's right up there with oxygen. We gather all these stuff over time. So
absolutely. Yeah, I do the same thing. Well, I want to dig into a few other things before we talk about something extra. I've listened to several of your episodes, and I also read one of your blogs. I love this blog you wrote. You go, Ineffective IT Directors, How to Stand Out as an IT Leadership Champion. Very creative writing there, by the way, Phil.
Oh,
when you wrote that blog, that was good. But, in a shortened version, because I think this will help our people. I mean, in a shortened version, how would you stand out as an IT leadership champion? How would you start?
One, communicating with people, effectively, getting out of the metaphorical server closet, so to speak, which hopefully doesn't exist in your organization anymore.
Right.
We know it is a necessary evil in some places, but having that business side, right? So the book that I have coming out soon is Speaking the Language of Business Technology, right? So it's kind of about that bridging the gap between technology nerd and a business savvy expert. So a way to stand out would be to have a good relationship with your CTO and your CFO. And I think it was Dan Roberts the other day that, you get a seat at the executive table by pulling up a seat, not by waiting for it to be offered. Right. Yeah. So that means knowing what keeps your CFO and CEO up at night, and knowing what the purpose of the business is, and being able to then mirror and match technology in your department with that vision and mission. I would guess that 80% of the IT directors that are, that we speak to probably don't have a living, breathing mission statement, vision statement on the wall in their knock or communicating it with their team that's in alignment with the company's vision and mission. And if they do, and if the IT director or CTO, CIO does, well, if they're CTO, CIO, they have a seat at the executive roundtable, I hope. If they don't have that in alignment, or they do have it, then how are they communicating that down to their team all the way down to the help desk? How does the help desk technician, that when he's helping, whoever, Sally, replace whatever or fix whatever, how are they having that conversation in a way that's helping that, again, end user, employee, customer, soul, do their job and do their job better, that benefits the bottom line of the company? So I think that's how to stand out. And part of that is business education, knowing how to read a P&L, knowing what
Yes.
knowing what EBITDA is, knowing, CapEx, OpEx, knowing how your department plays into the budget, and being able to speak the language of business from an IT's perspective, because there's nothing in the business that gets done without IT touching it in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's really, that's really good. Knowing the what is important, and one thing that I read, and it's so true. You said, what is top of mind for every leader? It doesn't matter who you are. It's growth. Right. And growth. And so like even starting there and saying, okay, I know that, growth top line, growth bottom line, where does IT fit in there? And IT technology can drive revenue, and then it can also, take cost out, right? You
Even
can
if it's a
eliminate cost,
nonprofit.
which is going to drive your bottom line.
Yes. Even if it's a nonprofit,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like, it's a non-profit, but there's still kind of like a profit or a need to drive revenue. Take
Yes.
I don't know, the Red Cross, for example, right? I give blood,
Mm-hmm.
and their app's pretty good. And it's got a gamification piece to it. And it's like, you've given this many pints of blood, or it's up to this many gallons now. And they give me different badges and stuff. And like, they're constantly texting me and like, warning, blood banks are low and you're going to get a free t-shirt if you come in today, and this. And like, so their technology is, I think, pretty darn good. And they got a good help desk too. Surprisingly,
Sure.
they answer, and I speak with a human that help me. It's not bad.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm underestimating the Red Cross, and, I should, shame on you, Phil, because the Red Cross is so big, but, just an example of,
Mm-hmm.
Technology makes a difference. Huge.
It does. In fact, I mean, you say this and we do too. It can be a force multiplier. Technology can be a force multiplier in the business. So, I've got to ask you one quick question, and we're going to talk about something extra.
Mm-hmm.
So you sent me a picture with this caption:
Mm-hmm.
From the frozen waters of the Atlantic, washed ashore the most bearded, coffee addicted, creative writer ever to embrace technology as a business force multiplier. Fortunately, he survived to use his barbaric skills in order to disrupt the technology landscape and eradicate mediocrity. Okay, I have to ask you, what is the story behind this? Because
like I said, I'm a creative writer. Okay, I just made that up off the top of my head as I wrote that. Okay,
but where did the frozen beard come from? Were you seriously scuba diving in the frozen Atlantic? What were you doing?
No, I'm a winter surfer, so I surf in Maine in the wintertime, and it's 35 degrees. The water temperature gets down to, I think the coldest it got last year was 35 degrees. So when you're out there in a nor'easter and there's snow coming in at a slant and you're surfing, your beard freezes up. Those icicles coming off my beard, that's a legit thing. So yeah, so I just use that picture every now and then to get people's attention, because why be boring? I don't know. I'm so done with, don't show up in my inbox with like some just boring. How many times do we get hit with technology, this and that, and news and everything? It's just like, we're all going to die. So we might as well just, can we at least live life without it being so corporate boredom? We got to step it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So
you got to add some levity in there. I love it.
So I survived. So I've got to live on another day. And because I have this long beard, every now and then, when I'm walking around in public and I just wear Carhartt pants, and like regular t-shirt or whatever, every now and then people probably feel sorry for me and want to throw a couple dollars my way, but
I love it.
Be authentic. That's all.
We had a son, Jordan, that spent about 5 years out in Hollywood and came back from Hollywood and grew a beard just like yours and had it for a long time. So yeah, Phil Robertson would have been very very happy with Jordan
Okay.
and his long beard.
If I cut this thing off, it's like I look like I'm 12. I'll be honest with you. It's not pretty. It's not.
It's funny. Well, let me ask you something. So this is called something extra.
Mhm.
Phil, what do you believe is the something extra that every leader needs?
It's difficult. There's a lot. It's a hard question to answer, right? Like what? Like because if we all knew the actual answer to whatever that was, then it's I don't know. We'd all be rich, I guess. So it could be five. It could be five or four different things.
Sure. But I'll give you a few. Yeah. I mean, because it's not just one thing, but
I think being authentic and transparent is very important.
Hmm.
I think, and again, these are themes that are going to come up over and over again when you look at different leadership. I don't necessarily I'm not saying you have to give out everything. I'm not saying you have to be an open book. You shouldn't share everything with everyone, but you have to be authentic and transparent. And because I think nowadays human beings are natural, lie detectors.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to ask people that have known me my whole life, I think they would say Phil's kind of like, hyperactive and high energy. So I don't know how do you have high energy? I don't know. Drink a lot of coffee. I didn't drink coffee in sixth grade, but I was still, that way. And I was very,
Yeah.
very, I've always loved people. I think even when they, even when they hated me, I've always loved people, even the haters, you know what I mean? Well, now there's
Mm-hmm.
probably a few haters that I think
Yeah. But maybe
the
you
earth would
didn't
be
love
a
as
lot
much.
better without, let's be honest,
Yeah.
So, and then embrace reality because the universe is a certain way and everyone has opinions and most of those people can take those opinions and put them in their pocket, right? You need to be seeking knowledge. You need to seek real knowledge, right? The universe is a certain way, regardless of whether we see it the right way or not, doesn't really matter. It exists a certain way. It's harsh and you need to embrace that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, authenticity. I mean, why would someone want to follow someone who's not, really who they are? And I also think when you're authentic, I think it gives other people permission to be authentic, their authentic selves too.
If
And
Yeah, and if there was something you had to learn though, and I coach a lot of of the youth, it's being able to take calculated risks. Everyone says I'll be a risk taker, be a risk taker, but you don't want to be stupid. You don't want to just it's kind of like when you go out and look for a job, don't just take any job. Like
Mhm.
we've probably all had a job at some point in their life that was like, why did I take this job, right? Take calculated risks. Don't be hasty. Hastiness can hurt. As hyperactive as I am, and as much as I think fast response times are very, very important, don't be hasty. Take calculated risks. So I don't.
Good advice.
I think that something extra is kind of like this conglomerate of different bullet points that people have learned over time. I guess you could say like, yeah, be willing to go against the grain, right? Like I have a 13-inch beard, like everyone says, oh, you can't have a beard in the business world. You got to be clean shaven and everything. Well, I wore a suit and tie for years and everything and seem to be doing all right with this long beard now. That's okay.
Mhm.
I don't believe in getting into massive debt. I believe living within your means is important. Again, homeschooling is great. Just go
Yeah.
against, there's a certain level of, there's a certain level of that. So, yeah.
Yeah. So good. So good. Yeah. I mean, debt, too much debt takes away
I'm debt
freedom.
free and I'm debt free and I don't, everything I own every
Yeah.
car. I own my
Yeah.
house. I don't, and I can't imagine what it must be like to have everything leveraged to the tilt. It must be
Mhm.
so stressful.
So stressful.
And,
I mean, you're like an indentured servant at that point.
travel and see the world. I mean, you'd be shocked at how other cultures live. I traveled to Morocco in July for the whole month. Unbelievable place. A most amazing, welcoming people. Super healthy environment to eat in. Somehow there, everything costs 1/10 of what it costs here.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I filled up a whole grocery cart. Filled up a whole grocery cart, overflowing, through a coffee maker and knives, stuff for the Airbnb that weren't in the Airbnb. The whole thing was maybe $70.
Wow. Yeah, they've definitely figured some things out. Now, I agree. Getting out and seeing other cultures, I think it just makes us so much more prepared in life and to grow, and to learn.
Yeah, and look down, don't look up. Don't be look down, don't look up. Meaning,
what do you mean by that?
Don't always be thinking, well, I don't have this. This is what I want, and looking up at what other people have and thinking I don't have that and that's what I want. Look down and be very grateful for what you have, because when you look down at the people below you, you'll all of a sudden you're like, I mean, it's what most of us have. Be grateful. Have an attitude of gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Good advice. Well, Phil, this has been so much fun. Oh my goodness. There's so much rich content here and wisdom and insights. I just appreciate so much you being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to today's show. Something Extra with Lisa Nichols is a Technology Partners production. Copyright Technology Partners, Inc., 2019. For show notes or to reach Lisa, visit tpi.co/podcast. Don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you listen.